Welcome to the Warriors of Light podcast, where we interview other warriors of light, people who are up to big things and making a positive impact in the world.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Warriors of Light show. Today, I am so deeply honored, so grateful to have one of my dear friends and mentors with us today to create an experience as we dig deep into how to show up as more powerful warriors of light in changing times. And this show is really designed for you as a leader to know how to have the tools and have the mindset so that you can create the movement and create the difference that you're meant to make in the world. And so I'm really excited to have you here, Rock. Let me, for those of you that are watching that haven't yet encountered Rock's genius, you are in for a treat. He is one of the most extraordinary human beings I've ever met on the planet. I've had the blessing of knowing you, Rock, for close to a decade, maybe actually over a decade, is like when I first met you, and we kind of got connected through the world of seminars we were both in, and Rock was a trainer with Tony Robbins for how long did you?
20 years.
20 years just supporting Tony and his work and being part of his events and yeah, really being a powerful leader everywhere you show up. But Rock has also built his own movements and has created his own tribes and led people. And what Rock is best known for is he has a Goldcast video with over 120 million views. I just wanted you to think about that. 120 million people have been inspired by Rock's story as he shared his journey. And he spent a lot of his life training people on the art of financial independence. And Rock, how many streams of income do you have, in your portfolio right now?
Well, some of them are trickles, but there are 45 of them. And they range from investments, Airbnbs, real estate, stocks, companies, online programs, multiple books I've written, medical clinics, solar business. I just love helping people grow their business. And so I usually find good operators and then take what I know, which is the scalability, and then grow them and then get a piece of the action. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah. And that's something that I know a lot of, these warriors of light that are watching. It's just like they aspire to have that, to support them, to have that financial backing as they live their purpose more fully. And Rock's obviously a guy that's figured out the financial game and understands how to build companies. But beyond that, like what I always love most about you, Rock, is your deep, like spiritual essence of who you are and why you do what you do and the impact that you make and the way that you just lead a heart-centered life. And those that experience you train, or those that experience you, in your coaching role in their life, they get this about you. Not only are you a total fucking badass in the business world, but you are so spiritually driven to make a huge difference and to leave your mark in the world in a positive way. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome Rock Thomas. Anything you want to add to that? I want to give you permission to brag for a moment and just share any like what's the accomplishment that you are most proud of in your career, in your life? Like if you look back at your career and the things that you've done and the awards you've received or the things you've built, like what are you most proud of looking back?
You were at my wedding, and I don't know if you remember, but there was a gentleman that stood up, recently got married, and gave his rendition of Rock Thomas. And I really liked it. He's known me for a while, and he said that Rock just keeps on breaking the mold and breaking the mold and breaking the mold and defying and stepping up. And I think that's what I'm most proud of, is that, I could look back into when I was 17 and I was employee of the month for McDonald's. I can look back to when I was 16 and I went tobacco picking in Southern Ontario and got my pilot's license before I got my driver's license. All of these things had the same character traits, which was show up, pay attention, be curious, wonder what is possible, learn, be open, contribute, ask. All those things have carried me through, all the way through to running the largest real estate organization in the province of Quebec with 275 salespeople, selling $1 billion of real estate a year, to, owning many, many businesses, writing 3 books, being the fastest person to become a Tony Robbins trainer in the history of Tony Robbins in 23 months. Most people take a decade. And so there's a lot of heart and hunger in Rock Thomas. And a lot of it was born out of adversity growing up. And that's the Gold Cast story. But what I've learned is that for somebody like myself, and it's not like I could say Michael Jordan or people like that, a lot of those people that have been exceptional came from not enoughness. And their achievements were to shut people up and say, oh yeah, I didn't make the high school basketball team. I will show you. And so a lot of my drive came from that. And then I think a lot of people, Gerald, that don't get the results that they want, that procrastinate, that don't take the action, they feel unworthy or incapable of massive action. And they feel like there's something wrong. But my experience is that they have a different skill set. They have patience, great listening, empathy, compassion that I didn't have for many, many decades of my life. I was a dick. I ran people over. I was not unethical, but I was willing to break things in order to get results. I was willing to be the dick on the football field and get in people's face and trash talk about their mother. I was so driven to get a result that the means justified the end. And therefore I didn't have a lot of friends and I alienated people. When people want, like, I don't know if you've ever seen an athlete where people go, yeah, he's an asshole unless he's on your team. Then he's a shit disturber in a good way. And I was a lot of the time that person because I had wounds of not having the pride and the joy from my parents being there and loving me. So whoever you are, you have work to do. Mine wasn't in the take action area. I learned how to do that at a young age by growing up on a farm. Mine was in the compassion, the gentleness, the loving. And so I've been divorced many times because I wasn't present to the woman in my life. I wanted her to be the mother that I didn't have. And so all of those things are lessons I had to learn. And if you think that bankrupting a business is tough, try going through 3 divorces and still having faith and love and surviving financially. And so everybody has their journey.
Yeah.
They always think that it's easier for other people. There's something flawed with them. No, you just have different parts of the picture to color in than I did.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because it's true. Like it's beautiful looking back on their journey and seeing the layers of unconsciousness that we have had to go through in our journey of awakening. And I forgot to mention for people, like just a couple of weeks ago, I got to go to Rock's wedding to a beautiful woman named Rose, and what an incredible celebration at his beautiful home. Like what an incredible thing to witness. And you're right. Like I've been through two divorces, right? Two marriages where I didn't show up, the way that my wife needed me to show up. It's easy for people when they go through divorce to point at the other person as like, she did this or she did that, or like like she didn't meet me here, but like at the end of the day, like the journey of transformation, the journey of a leader is personal accountability and radical responsibility, to look back and say, oh, wow, yeah, it's actually, I was the one that created that relationship. And I was the reason why that relationship didn't work. And it takes courage to step back in to the game when you've been beat up and bruised in the past. And yeah, I really want to celebrate you with that. And something you mentioned, I think, which is really important for each of the listeners that's here is, the reason that I felt inspired to launch this podcast, this show right now is because we are in a season of unprecedented change. Like the world is changing faster than it's ever changed before. And with that change, there's unbelievable uncertainty. There's uncertainty politically, there's uncertainty economically, there's uncertainty culturally. Like there's all of this change evolving before our eyes, and it's just accelerating, right? Like one of the things that impacted me most when I went to one of Tony Robbins' Plaid financial trips was he had all these world leaders there, you know, like he had like 10 billionaires that came and spoke, and all of these analysts and you know, political leaders, and in consensus they were all talking about it like we're in a season unlike any before. And one of the speakers said, in the next 10 years we'll experience more change than the last 100 years combined. I want everyone to pause and think about that. Imagine your mind rewinding back to 1922, right? Just emerging after World War I. Imagine where the country was at. Imagine where technology was at. Imagine, you know, where we were at financially as a country, like 1922. Now imagine that much change happening in the next 10 years. And then it just accelerating beyond that with the evolution of AI and biotechnology and cryptocurrency and alternative forms of, you know, travel and communication. All of these things are like changing around us so fast. And one of the things that marks you as a leader, Rock, which I think I really want to dig into, is how to navigate uncertainty with confidence. Like when you look at your life and how you've been able to go through all these changes and to continually reinvent yourself, like what do you think are some of the biggest characteristics that allow you as a leader to navigate with confidence in times of uncertainty?
You know, one of the things I've learned of training and teaching and coaching is simplicity is really the hallmark of a great teacher or trainer. So I want to make this really simplistic. Curiosity versus trying to be right. Most people are committed to being right. Oh, cryptocurrency, that'll never work. That's a fraud, right? NFTs, what is that? That's crap, that's bullshit. Amazon, you know, I don't trust ordering online. People are so committed to being right because when they feel they can control what's going on the inside, right? Then they don't have to control what's going on the outside, but most people can't control what's going on the inside. So they try to control what's going on the outside. What's enabled me to have 45 streams of income, what's enabled me to live in Australia for a year, Southeast Asia, Florida for 2 years, get a working visa to live in the United States, even though I'm Canadian, et cetera, is curiosity and wonder. And so by the time you're about 6 years old, the wonder starts to edge out as your brain starts to develop at the front and you be more analytical and you can remember fearful things. Most people don't harness that or don't have any awareness around it. I guess I've just been the one who's been continually curious. So I'm like, well, what could happen here? What could we do there? Oh, cryptocurrency? I wonder what I should learn about that. Who's talking about it? And so I think as you go forward, and you mentioned the next 10 years, if you're not curious and you don't live in wonder, I hope I can say this, you're going to be fucked hard, period. People need to open their mind and stop trying to be right. The most successful people I know, Gerald, talk the least. I was just at a dinner with, I want to say a couple of billionaires. I don't think they're quite there yet, but hundreds of millions, private jets, et cetera, with a few of them. And all they do is ask questions. They don't talk. And all the people who are not where they want to be, they're acting like they know everything about the planet. Oh, here's what's going to happen with that. Oh, did you hear about that? I think that this guy is a fraud. No. So my suggestion is get curious, live in wonder, read, listen to things, listen to podcasts like this, get different perspectives. A man with one perspective held tightly is less powerful than a man with many perspectives held loosely. And so that's really, I think, that what's helped me, Gerald.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I hope that lands within each person, like this idea of being curious and being in wonder, because like one of my favorite quotes is from I think his name's Eric Hoffer, who said this quote, but he said, in seasons of change, the learners will inherit the earth. Yes. While the learned will find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. Yeah. And so for the people that feel like they've made it, they're the ones that get fucked. They're the ones that get screwed, because like the world's going to change. Like the world that we're stepping into 5 years or 10 years from now is completely different. And
Well,
unless
just think about how you and I do events. We
yeah,
rent these houses and we, from Airbnb, what have you, these gorgeous multi-million-dollar homes. And we have, 20 or 30 people come by for an intimate event. We hire a chef. That didn't exist, as far as I know, really, unless you did an inner circle T. Harv Eker thing, but he did it at his own house. But the whole world has changed. You can do that. They're epic. In fact, I just had a young boy post 7 years ago. He came to one of our events as a volunteer. And today he runs a center for wholesale selling of real estate. He's 26 years old. He was 19 years old when he came and volunteered. He now has 23 staff and does hundreds of homes a year, all based on coming and volunteering and listening to us talk about real estate and multimillionaires. And so that's the power of the change in the world. And I say to people, where are you showing up? Here's a metaphor that you might like. Imagine you go to a hotel and you go to the buffet. You've probably been to them, right? They got the fruit, and then they got the person that makes you the eggs. And we were down at Joe Dispenza not too long ago, and they had a huge buffet all over the place. But instead of the food, I want you to imagine behind the buffet are all the people that have contributed to your programming. So your parents are there, your brother and sister, that ex-partner that screwed you over, your ex-wives are serving up a dish, your kids, your siblings, your football coach that told you you're too slow, you're too fat, whatever. And because science shows us that 95% of the time your thoughts are the same, it's because you keep on replaying, oh, I'm too fat, I can't run fast. You never pick up your socks. Both your ex-wives told you never pick up your socks, you're lazy. And so you keep on replaying those thoughts. And so what I teach people is, if you don't go to a fresh new buffet / a mastermind retreat, read a book, listen to something good, science tells us you're eating the same mashed potatoes over and over again. You're thinking about the fact you're lazy, you don't pick up your socks. It's a file in your brain that has been served to you, and you keep on replaying it. So when we go back to the curiosity and wonder, that's when you're going to new events, you're going to Joe Dispenza, you're meditating, you're doing a new ritual, you're doing affirmations, you're bringing in new nutrition for your mental diet, and you're moving away from the bullshit that the victims, your parents, etc., we're all victims of victims. It's not that they're bad people, is that they didn't have the knowledge and understanding that telling somebody, quiet, you're meant to be seen, not heard, that it had a direct impact on your self-worth.
Yeah.
And so I intentionally go to new buffets. I surround myself with people that are going to tell me I can, it's possible, you're smart, you're beautiful, I appreciate you. Most people are not intentional. They're eating from the same buffet, Gerald. And this is the core of their problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a lot of courage to step outside of an existing paradigm and to think different, or to be in new environments. And I think courage is like one of the themes of these warriors of light leaders, people that are choosing to take a stand and to be well,
a lot of people don't even know that they're fish in that little fishbowl, right? They don't even know. They don't even know. They think that they are their thoughts. They think that they are lazy. They think that they are not good with money, but they weren't born that way. Somebody suggested to them, the teacher walked by and go, 2 + 2 is not 5. Are you stupid? And that landed. And for the rest of their life, I have clients like it, the rest of their life, they don't like to look at their bills. They don't want to look at the numbers. They don't want to get involved in investments because of one suggestion from one person that they're not good at math.
Yeah. I do hypnosis shows, and I do a lot of like subconscious reprogramming work. And one of the things I just anchor in over and over again, because some people are like, oh, I don't know if I can be hypnotized. I'm like, you already are hypnotized. You've been hypnotized since the time you were young. And most people don't realize all the influences of hypnosis that have been around them all the time from their parents and their teachers and through the media. And, with everything we've been going through with the pandemic and everything, like people are oblivious to all of the constant, neuro programming that is being, inflicted upon them. And in that unconsciousness, they're powerless. They're powerless when they are operating from the unconsciousness of the victim.
And to add to that, Gerald, is when you've been eating mashed potatoes from the buffet for 10 or 20 years, let's say, like, I'll give you a specific example for me is, I grew up with 7 brothers and sisters, but when I struggled, I isolated myself. When I felt like I didn't belong, I went to my room, I read, I listened to the radio, I went to the other room out in the barn and I watched sports. Something in me felt so little that I isolated and I left. And I was not an inclusive family. It was a Partridge family. It was my father married, and so half stepbrothers, stepsisters. None of us shared the same values. The parents weren't good leaders. So I got used to being isolated a lot. And then I started to realize that as I grew up, I did things alone. I would go golfing on my own. I liked being alone because I was used to it. And then now I'm in my relationship with Rose. And when we have a conflict, when we see things not in alignment, the first thing I want to do is run away and be alone.
Yeah.
I want to go do yoga alone. She goes, oh, well, I'll come with you. I go, no, babe, I want to go alone. I want to go golfing. I want to go out into my yard and putt. I want to get away and be on my own. And that's perceived as, for her, me not loving her.
Yeah.
But it's just a trigger from the past that's so unconscious that I'm now 59 and I'm starting to realize, oh my God, I do that in other areas. I go to family dinners and I find a reason to leave early because I have not been comfortable with being with people for long periods of time. And so what other unconscious behaviors do we all have? How are we being passive aggressive? Or aggressive because that's what we learned or that's what we got used to survive. And so my method was always isolate. And then people would even reach out to me, hey, we want to partner with you on this, or we want to do this. And if I wasn't in a good state, Gerald, I would find a way to be busy or what have you and miss an opportunity, or for people to perceive it as, oh, Rock's not available or Rock's not that friendly. And so these are lessons that they keep on revealing themselves. You don't stop learning, man. I tell you don't. I mean, if you keep on being curious.
Yeah. And it's amazing looking how these experiences shape our life for better or for worse, right? And one of the things that I really would love to explore with you is this idea that like strength comes through experience. Every strong person has been through challenging times, and it's easy for people to look at someone like you that has all these business success and multimillionaire, has done all these extraordinary things, and it's so powerful to think Rock's lucky, right? But what people don't see is like what goes on behind the scenes in the shaping of someone. If you could identify like one specific experience from your journey that was one of the most challenging parts of your life, but you look back on with the most gratitude, what do you feel like was one of the most defining moments that shaped you into being the man that you are now?
Well, I can tell you something candidly is about 8 years ago, I started a mastermind group called GoBundance with 5 other guys. And I took the lead to a great part with the vision and everything I'd learned from Harv and from Tony Robbins. And these guys were great entrepreneurs, but they weren't that rich in personal development. After 3 or 4 years of me being on the stage, being an author and operating it, I think that my personality of wanting to be a loner and driving things alienated them a little bit. And I think, to be candid, they were a little jealous of me being on stage and an author and getting all the attention. So they wanted some significance. And so we ended up separating. And for lack of a better framing of it, I gently got nudged out of an organization that I felt I created. A little bit like Steve Jobs with Apple when he got asked to leave, right? That's what it was like from my experience. I felt sorry for myself. I felt rejected. And I had thought, Gerald, I'd found my brothers, my tribe. And then I got eased out. So of course I went on and created my own, and it's mega successful and it's done very well because I reinvent myself and I'm a warrior. But that was one of the hardest things because most of my life, as I had said before, is I'm a loner. I have been a loner. And so for me to finally be part and meld and mesh with somebody and be vulnerable and share my dreams and goals and to grow something together, to birth something, to be kicked out of the nest was freaking hard, man. It was freaking hard. I was depressed. I thought I don't belong anywhere. I really finally thought this was it. We're going to change the world with this environment. And then, hey, you don't belong. So it took me about 2 years to process, to not be angry, and then rekindle relationships with some of these guys and to mend the ways and to have some really heartfelt conversations. And I learned something is that when you name the emotion you're feeling, and it goes, I'll give you the script. I think it's very powerful. I'll use John as the name. Hey, John, when you guys asked me to leave the group, I felt betrayed, hurt, and like I didn't belong. But I now recognize that that's a story I made up. And I gave my power away to all of you wanting to have connection or significance. And today I realize that it was a pattern I was running, and I take responsibility for manifesting that lesson in my life. And then the other person, if they're in good communication and they understand, they just say, thank you for sharing. And then that's it. But the feeling of becoming closer and being able to express that is so freaking powerful that now I use it in many of my relationships. And I tell people, hey, can we have this style of communication? Tell me, name the emotion you're feeling, but then take ownership for the story, right? Because it is a story we tell ourselves based on our experiences and our filters.
Yeah.
And so if we don't own it, we lose the power by blaming them. And that's what I did. But then I took back the ownership, got the lesson, and then they were able to not feel the separation that I had created by judging them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And that story lands so deeply with me. I think, part of my story, I had almost an identical situation happen with this company called Limitless that I grew. And like we had built it with my partner, and we were doing events every month and having 300 to 500 people every single month coming. And like I was like central to the creation of that. And then about a year and a half, 2 years into it, like, I basically got nudged out because my perspective was different than a lot of the religious views of a lot of people in the organization. And they didn't feel like I was
similar.
qualified to be a spiritual leader because, I had different philosophies. And yeah, I got kicked out of the company I created. And like you, like there was a healing process. But isn't it funny as we look back on those situations, like I'm like, I was so hurt and I felt so like betrayed and I felt so like wounded because these were the people that I had chosen to invest my life with. And these were my best friends. And like I had imagined spending the rest of my life building this movement. And then to feel like I was like kicked out of my own family,
Yes, exactly. What do you think was behind it for you? Because I know for me, I told you before, I was the way I lived my life growing up was I isolated myself repeatedly. And so I recreated that, right? I manifested this isolation by the way I showed up, with the things I asked them to do or not do.
Yeah, it was.
I think was behind it for you.
Yeah, it was interesting for me as I look back, because I've spent a lot of time processing through that, because I was in a lot of victimhood thinking, okay, they were wrong. How dare they do this? And the organization like fell apart fairly quickly after I left, and I had this like
part of you was happy.
I was so like validated. It's like, that's what happens. I was the heart of this organization.
Right.
What happens when you take the heart out, right? And there was like this validation that I got in a weird weird way, but what I realized is, oh, I can totally see that there were elements of me that had sold out in order to be part of that organization. And I kept separating myself from some of my own core values because I was trying to be liked or accepted by this tribe, right? And without going too deep into it, like I grew up Mormon, but then I left the church, and a lot of the people in this organization were Mormon, and those were the values that were driving this organization. And some of them didn't fully like meet me spiritually where I was, and I kept like selling out on my own personal integrity to be part of that group and that tribe. And the more I separated myself from me, the more I felt like disconnected. I felt like I was, and really what it came down to is, I think there was a story that was being created inside of me that I was losing myself. I was losing my freedom in pursuit of this, the service of this tribe. And they started making all these rules that I just like my whole soul just like rebelled against. Like here, the organization was called Limitless. And we started creating all these ridiculous rules. You can't hug people at events, or you can't do that. It's like, what? And I was like, my values were being like, disrupted because of these people that just want to create more and more rules to create like safety. And here I was like wanting to break through. And so I can see how I can see how like subconsciously I needed to evolve beyond it. And it's interesting, isn't it? Like looking back at that situation, it's like, I am so extraordinarily grateful that things happened the way they did, because there's no way I would be who I am today. There's no way I would have the tribe that I have today. There's no way that I would have been cultivated into the leader I am today if it wasn't for, that separation.
I want to comment on that, because there's a part of me that agrees, and there's a part of me that calls bullshit when I hear people say that, because I've had to have that experience with myself. And I want to just have that narrative with you. People are like, oh, I love my life and everything's great. No, here's what happens for me is that I go through different emotions. I went through regret and sadness and disappointment and heartache. And there's still a small part of me that once in a while wishes it was different. But here's the deal is you've got to decide in your life, are you going to choose that things are happening to you or for you? And if you don't make that conscious choice, you'll slip back to betrayal, resentment, etc. And so I would say there's still fumes for me. There's still like a 3% wishing that I was still part of that organization and we were bros. There's still a tiny bit there. But I think because I've done the work and I looked for the lessons and I looked for, how do I grow through this? What was the spiritual reason that this showed up? Then I get excited about working through it. And I think that's a crucial piece, because some people try, oh, well, you can't change that. I love my life the way it is. I got screwed over by my partner. You need to process through that, Gerald, like you and I have. I believe you need to do the work. You need to forgive. Forgive's a big thing. I had to really forgive a lot of people. I used to look at them post on Facebook and go, motherfucker, fucker, And then I started to just change and forgive and realize that it was all projection. It was all projection. They were just teachers that showed up. And it has nothing to do with them being bad people. They were teachers. And if I don't get the lesson, I'm going to judge them.
Yeah.
If I get the lesson, I'm going to appreciate them. And that's the place I'm at today. So I just wanted to make that footnote, because a lot of times people are like, oh no, I'd never change anything. Yeah, I would fucking change some things if I had the resourcefulness to do it at the time. I just didn't have the tools. It's like when you're inside the box and the directions to get outside of the box are on the outside, you need somebody to read you the directions.
Yeah.
And so those gentlemen were reading me the directions to get out of my own box. I just didn't like them reading the directions because I thought we were all in the same box. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's really important, because it's not about bypassing the emotion and just like, being like ignorant of like what really we're feeling and like pushing it to the side. But it's about like processing and healing through it. But then there is also this moment of decision that says, all right, what is what is, right? Like I can't argue with reality, and I could keep going back and rewinding and wishing that things were different than they are. but that all of a sudden becomes useless, right? Like there's less value in going back and wishing that things were, and looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, I can see all of these things that I would have done different, like if I was in that situation.
Yes.
And knowing that I can't, I really like it. It's about like leaning into gratitude for what is, and just choosing the fact that, all right, this is the path I'm on right now. So this is what I choose to make my best path in leading my life forward. And what I'd
And
love to do.
also, just to add to that, Gerald,
Yeah, yeah.
because I think it's such a good point, is we all want to ride a bike really well or drive a car really well. But part of the process of riding a bike well is falling off of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to fall off of it, but if you're going to appreciate riding the bike well, there are going to be those steps. And that's the process of growth. I lost $1 million in the stock market. I sold a business for 4 million, got $1 million cash, and lost it in the stock market. Of course, I would love to have that money back in the stock that I bought. I've done the math, is worth 32 million today, had I owned it still, right? 12 years ago. But I didn't have, I was riding, I needed training wheels. And I tried to get onto, a motorcycle with 8 gears and think I could master it. That was the lesson I needed to get. And so the lesson comes first, and then the skill comes later. And if it was easy peasy all the time, we wouldn't appreciate it. So to me, it's like you said, decide what meaning you're going to give it. And so the meaning I gave it was, I need to surround myself with smarter people than me if I'm going to invest in an arena I don't know. And guess what? I made 100% in the stock market in 2020, and I made 100% with 3 times the amount of money in 2021 in the market, because I got the lesson.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I want to kind of like distill this down for everyone that's listening, and like, let's see if we can create like a formula. When life throws us experiences or challenges or things in our life that we don't like, right? And everyone has these experiences, whether it be a business failure or being betrayed by a partner or some experience that really is painful in the moment. Like, leaders and warriors of light handle those moments differently. What would you say is a formula for navigating through disappointment and failure and rising above it so that you step into being more empowered moving forward? Like, what would your formula be?
Well, I wrote a chapter on it, and it all has to do with focus. But I think, let me preframe it by saying that there are stages to shock. So let's say you're driving to work, you're going somewhere, and you get pulled over by a police officer, and you're really upset because you didn't feel like you were speeding that much. He gets to the window and you're in shock. Like, I can't believe, like, I think I was driving okay. And he's like, no, you were 10 miles an hour over. And he's not that nice. You're in shock. The second thing is, he's not very nice. So you get into anger and you start going, well, you know what? I work hard. I'm like a good citizen. I pay my taxes. You should be going after the criminals. And you get angry. The third one is you start to negotiate. Oh, can you let me off? Can you let me go? What have you? Sometimes you negotiate with God, right? God, please help my football team win. This is the last play, So you go through those stages. The fourth stage is sadness, is when you realize that you're going to get the ticket and you're going to pay the $200. And the last one is acceptance. And that's when you're like, you know what? My life ain't that bad. I can afford the $200. And so anytime that you go through a situation you don't like, I become conscious of those stages and I try to see, where am I at? But I got a hack where I learned that I can jump to the end in the moment, just like a pilot when the engine is on fire. He's like, oh my God, there's an engine on fire. Oh God, please help us. Freaking mechanic screwed up. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't get sad. He goes immediately where? To acceptance. That's where the mastery is. That's where the capability, the productivity, the resourcefulness is. And then after you've handled that situation, the way you get to mastery or to the last one is you say, what's great about this? What's great about the engine being on fire? Well, John, what's great is we have fire extinguisher, press the button, boom. What's great is that we can fly with one engine. We have another engine. What's great is we can get to an emergency airport and we have people that are going to surround us and support us. And so you start to change the meaning of the event to something that you accept, and you become resourceful. Later on, after you land the plane and it's over. You go, oh my God, freak me out, right? You be angry that you didn't check the engine, or you did something wrong, or the co-pilot or the mechanic, right? You can feel sad. But the key when you're in the shit and it's going rough is you've got to be able to look for the gift. You got to be able to say, what's great about this? And then look for the lesson. And sometimes your brain, there's nothing great about an engine on fire. So you've got to trick the brain and go deeper. And you say, what could be great about this? And then your brain goes, well, I could be a hero. If I could land this baby on one engine and keep everybody south, wouldn't that be a great story? And so you start to, based on the power of a question, change your focus. And with that focus, you become energized. And so that's what I've done in my life, is when things go crappy, what's great about this? My brain refuses to give me an answer. I ask a better question, more powerful, more what could be great about this? And if you don't believe that that happens, I know you know this, but for the listeners, your brain will answer every question. Don't answer this question, 2 + 2. Your brain answered it. So the key to success, or one of the cornerstones to success, is to ask really, really empowering, resourceful questions. And then your brain becomes your slave versus you being a slave to your unconscious thoughts.
Yeah, such a powerful tool. You and I share a mutual friend, Steve Linder. So Steve Linder was the one that taught me NLP when I was going through, and he used to be called into companies and organizations. He get paid like $25,000 a day to consult these companies that were going through like really challenging times. And he shared with me a question that really like stuck with me, talking about learning the power of impactful questions. And during like these times where everything seems lost and they're going through the incredible challenges, he would ask this question. He said, assuming that we've already solved this problem, what did we do? Right. And he would lead with that assumption, like knowing that the solution already exists. What did we do to solve this problem? And that question would be what he would like lay out on the table among the council. It's like, all right, let's talk about, fast forward, let's create this from this point in this future where we've already evolved beyond whatever this little hiccup is, and like let's create it from that version of ourselves. And I think that's really powerful. During the remaining time that we have, Rock, I would love for you to just guide us in whatever experience you feel like would be most impactful or valuable for these warriors of light that are stepping into leadership in times of uncertainty, and learning how to program their brain to be more effective in working for them.
Yeah, sure. And I want to add a Steve Linder story. Is about 10 years ago, we were at a Tony Robbins event. He's a Tony Robbins trainer. And he told me, Rock, sell everything you have and buy Tesla stock. And at the time, Tesla stock was around $150. It's split a few times. So today it is the equivalent of something like $5,000. So it went up like 20 times. But I had a brain that was not a 7-digit brain. It wasn't a millionaire brain. It was more like 1,000-aire or 100,000 kind of brain. So I could only go 40 miles an hour with my brain, where his brain was accustomed to going 400 miles an hour. So I looked at him and I didn't do anything. And I think this is one of the challenges that people have, and they get frustrated with themselves because there are unbelievable opportunities around us all the time. Anybody could have bought Tesla stock even during the pandemic and made 5 times their money. Amazon went up, a bunch of stocks went up. Real estate has gone through the roof. Airbnb's on fire. I know lots of people making tons of money through Airbnb. One of my members bought 87 single family homes in the last 19 months by getting systematic and intentional. Until your money blueprint, your identity, the way you see yourself, the story you tell yourself, and the food you're eating at the buffet, until you shift that, you're going to end up with the same results. So for me, the work I did on myself was to expand that. And there's 2 things I think that affect that more than anything else. Number 1, and this is not earth-shattering, but sometimes people need to hear it again, is the people you spend time with. You're going to manage. Let's say you and I hang out, Gerald, and you say, hey, Rock, I'm going to buy this piece of real estate in Utah. And I'm like, oh my God, don't you think there's a real estate bubble, Gerald? Like, you're going to buy it now? Come on, man. Interest rates are going up. Inflation's going up. That's stupid. Even if you've got a lot of confidence, you still have to give that thought some consideration, because we all want to connect and belong. And you've got to manage it, and you got to do something with it. If you're surrounded by like-minded, evolved, forward-thinking people, that maybe even if they believe that, they would ask you a better question, like, what makes you think that now is a great time to purchase real estate, Gerald? Tell me what your plan is. What are the numbers on that? I'd be excited if it was a good deal, maybe to go in with you. And so when you surround yourself with people that are resourceful, positive, growth-based, curious, and in wonder, you are much more energized. When you're around people that are dream stealers, negative, and just don't know, they're going to drag you down. So that's number one. Number two is, and this is again not, it's going to sound so simplistic, but if you haven't read a book by Louise Hay, I don't know if you have, Louise Hay, it's called You Can Heal Your Life. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I've never read it though.
So she had cervical cancer that she healed with affirmations. And she literally visualized her private parts being healed and being healthy and full and not sick. And so she teaches in this book the importance of affirmations. And I'll tell you, they're so simplistic. One is just to go around and say 400 times a day, I approve of myself, because most people don't. And so as you go through that, look in the mirror and say, I love you. Most people will look in the mirror and see the wrinkles, see the hair that they don't want, or the hair that they don't have, see something in their face, their teeth are turning yellow, whatever the case may be. And so the conversation they have is a conversation that is 90% negative. If people would do those two things, in my opinion, Gerald, is intentionally surround themselves with people that are growth-based, wonder, curiosity-based, and they would work on their own narrative and self-talk, they would be way better off.
I love that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That's, our vision for the Warriors of Light Summit, which is coming up, is based on that, like collecting these people that think different, that see the world different, that are really intentional about creating a meaningful impact in the world, and then really focusing on the training of our body, our mind, our heart, to activate our full potential in this world. And I think what you're saying is so important. Can you guide us through like this idea of like really shifting our life through meaningful affirmations? Can you guide us through any experience that you feel like would be impactful for those that are listening to like ingrain this into who we are right now?
Gerald, I used to try to come up with these really, really complex things so I could look smart. So, but over time, I've realized that it's really what works is what is simple. So I'll tell you a typical, really high level day for me is I wake up just before 5 o'clock, and the first thing I do is GGA, grace, gratitude, and acceptance. And so I think about everything that's graceful in my life, and I focus on the things that are beautiful. And then I think about what I'm grateful for, the sheets, the warm body beside myself, my dog that likes to sleep on the bed, whatever it is, but I really feel the feelings. And then I say, whatever happens today and I attract today, I'm going to choose to accept. And I prepare myself for accepting the problems, the growth, the grace. So that's the first thing. Then I get up and I have my little routine with my dog, and I walk my property, and then I go to my yoga class at 5:30. And in that yoga class, I usually get a chance to connect with spirit or my creator, focus on my breathing, and push my body to the next level. And when I come out of that by 6:30, I feel really, really grounded and focused and really great. And then when I drive home, I shout out my affirmations, whatever that is, right? I approve of myself. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. I love you. I love you. And I look in the rearview mirror, but I turn it to myself. And so by the time I get home, a couple hours after I've woken up, I'm completely centered, strong, grounded, feeling grateful, feeling grace, ready to accept what the day has to bring me. And then as I go through the day, I have my books scattered around, and I'll feed myself again from the buffet, but not the buffet that I grew up with. It's Rock's special buffet that includes my teachers and my mentors, my books, maybe just a phrase or a quote to renew myself in the middle of the day. You've been to my property, so I have a basketball court. I'll intentionally, in between my calls and the work I'm doing, go out for 10 or 15 minutes with my dog and just horse around and play and move my body and sing and laugh, roll around on the grass with my dog and be as childlike as possible. And that's my day. And I go to some more meetings, and then maybe I go golfing, or I work out, or I hike, or I go swimming, or I go for a massage. And toward the end of the day, I'm learning, or maybe I sit down and watch a little Netflix movie or something like that. But my day is full of really intentionally focusing on guiding this thing here away from the drama that it's tempted by. And when I do that, every day is so much more beautiful. And I think that's something that people take for, I'm so busy, I don't have time to read, I don't have time to listen to podcasts. Kids, get ready, hurry up. You've got to find the time to nourish your brain, or it will control you. The amygdala will take over, and you'll spend 90% of your time in fear. And the more you do that, you're going to be eating the same freaking mashed potatoes that you grew up with. And you're going to be overweight, you're going to be broke, you're going to be unhappy, and maybe in a relationship, but unfulfilled. So you got to serve yourself a new diet. And that's what I do every day.
It's so beautiful and such a powerful reminder. And I hope everyone's like really grabbing on and holding on to this. Like Rock just trained you on how to take control of the steering wheel of your mind and direct your life to where you want to go. And most people live as victims. And when we're in a victimhood, we're letting someone else essentially be in the driver's seat, and we're blaming them for us experiencing things we don't want and going in the wrong direction. And like when we take this radical responsibility and like really wake up with grace, gratitude, and acceptance, and then focusing on mastering our body and tuning in our mind, and then having these power practices and really shaping the way that we think through our words and really managing that state throughout the day, then how could you have anything else other than an exceptional, extraordinary life? How else could you do anything else except for make a massive, extraordinary impact? How could you do anything else other than be a magnet for extraordinary wealth and love and joy and health and vitality? It's like that's the natural outcome when we are consciously the drivers of our life. So beautiful. Any final wisdom you want to share, Rock, for those that are listening? Any final wisdom that you want to
yeah, and I want to share the wisdom is you just regurgitated what I said so eloquently and so beautifully, that the only way you could do that if you were present and listening. And I think that first of all, whoever's following you and listening to you, they should really appreciate that about you as a teacher and a life coach and an influencer. The second thing is maybe learn to model that, because I think so few people are actually present. What they're doing is they're thinking their own thoughts, or they're thinking, what am I going to say? Or is that true? You just chose to absorb the things that made sense and to regurgitate them for the audience. And so maybe that's the way to end it, is how do you get present in life? How do you appreciate the moment? How do you stay on the mat in yoga and focus on your breathing versus thinking about the fact that you got a bill coming up that you can't pay? Get present, enjoy the moment. I know it's cliche, but if you don't, you end up running off worrying about the future or regretting the past, and that's not a quality life. And so get down into that buffet and absorb some of the food that keeps you present, whatever that is for you. Right there, enjoy your glass of water with lemon. Oh my God, I just love that fresh lemon off my tree with this beautiful water that I filtered because I spent, $3,000 on a really cool pH balanced water machine. And I am so freaking lucky that right now, I get to be present to that.
That's such a beautiful thing that you modeled just there. It's just like when we can find that level of joy and gratitude in something as simple as water, then we experience like unbelievable wealth in everything we do, right? And it's that access point back to presence, and access point back to our hearts as we continue to lead and manifest the life that we love. So Rock, for those that are listening that want more of Rock, and I feel so nourished by the time we've spent together, and it's like recatalyzed some lessons for me that are really important, you know, as I look at, okay, what am I going to do different tomorrow because of this conversation? And it's reinvigorated this idea of like waking up intentionally and like being very, very clear on the direction that I'm steering my life and steering my mind, and making sure that I'm really present to the practices of that every day. And so like that's my commitment, is to have new energy to the morning practices that I do in my life. And I'm just going to invite everyone.
I have a gift
Yeah.
for your.
Yeah, please let them know how they can get more of Rock.
So if they go to rockthomas.com/free book, they're going to get one of my books. I can't tell you which one it is because I forget. It's either The Power of Your Identity, which is that force of you wanting to continue to eat from the same buffet and stay the same way, and why and how to break through that. Or it's Your Epic Life Blueprint, which are the top 10 rules of success. And I believe that when you follow those rules, you have success. In other words, you move quickly toward your results. And when you don't, you take the long, winding dirt path to get there. And you know, chapter 9 was what we talked about, was, you know, what's great about this? I tell the whole story of many examples of how I changed the meaning of things to remain empowered and resourceful. But there's 9 other chapters. So you can get a piece of my life's experience put into a book. And so that's the way that they can stay in touch.
That's beautiful. And can you give the website again?
Yep, rockthomas.com/free book.
rockthomas.com/free gift. Thank you so much. And
free book.
Oh, free book.
And they'll get a free gift. I think they have to pay shipping or something like that. I'm not even sure. But you can also go to Audible and get the book on Audible.
Beautiful. rockthomas.com/free book. And make sure you check out his Goalcast video. Just search him online, and he's got some like really extraordinary stuff. And a reminder too, that you can go to warriorsoflight.net to access other recordings of other leaders that we were interviewing as part of this experience, and access some free gifts that we have for you there too. So thank you so much, Rock. You are such a gift to this planet, such a gift to my life. And for everyone that is watching and listening, just remember, this is your life. Make it legendary.